So Polyphia's long-awaited fourth album, Remember That You Will Die, has finally been released, and with the 4-year gap between their previous project, New Levels, New Devils, some of us thought this day would never come. This release is full of experimental fusions that push the boundaries, and it's inspiring to see a band break away from the conventional sounds and test the waters. This was exactly the reason they received so much backlash in their early years, so it's great to see them staying true to that agenda. Before I get into my analysis, one thing I absolutely loved about the album is the ensemble approach throughout different songs, with the trumpets and violins, like at the end of Ego Death and throughout Genesis. It reminds me a little of Corey Wong's band, but with more prominent guitars. I think it's a great touch. So let's talk about Polyphia's album, Remember That You Will Die. I find the name ironic because I think Polyphia is coming up on their peak and we'll see a downward shift very soon, but I will talk more on that later in the video. So every album is going to have some songs that don't hit the mark, and Polyphia is no exception. The one I want to talk about is the track featuring Snot. The song is all over the place, and personally, I'm not sure where they were going with this one. The guitars don't add much to the song, and Snot's verses just really don't do it for me. All the guitars do is follow the same voice phrasings as the lyrics, which I feel is a little amateurish for this band. And I know I'm not overly criticizing this song, because in their other tracks with vocals like ABC and Chimera, the instruments complement the vocals very well, and together they create something that wouldn't be anywhere as good if it was just the instruments or vocals alone. The seamless mesh between the rapping and instrumentals just isn't there. I think the song would really sound better if the guitars were more simplified, and honestly, I believe the song was more so an exposure tactic, since Snot is the biggest feature on the album by a long shot with almost 8 million monthly listeners on Spotify. You gotta do what you gotta do, but this could have been executed better without a doubt. Just listen to the way the guitars accented the vocals in Memento Mori, which was done significantly better. In all honesty, this was the only track that I couldn't get behind at all. The song is titled Fuck Around and Find Out, and they really fucked this one up. Now I want to talk about some of my favorites from the album, and there's a few. The first one I want to mention is Reviw. This track isn't too over the top on the production, and it's something that's familiar to Polyphia, but pushed a step forward. It reminds me of the Most Hated EP, specifically the song Iconic, which is the song I listen to the most from that project. And the slowdown at the end of the song is so smooth, and it adds that extra layer to make me want to run it back. The song is the classic Polyphia, and I absolutely love it. Next up on my list is Genesis. This track is a beautiful fusion of that ensemble vibe I mentioned earlier, and let me tell you, it is tasty. I'd never thought I'd hear Polyphia's guitars in this manner, but I have zero complaints. It's a prime example of something experimental and new that's carried out effectively. I have to give credit where credit is due, and this track sounds grand, and the various instruments really bring out that emotional grandiosity. It's a perfect opening song for a project like this, and I would love to see this aspect incorporated into some of their songs in the future, because I think it sounds really good. I think if any artist is ever going to experiment with something that's drastically different, they should do so in a manner where they're still recognizable to their audience, which in this case, they are. And this is so people get accustomed to hearing their sound in a new setting. Most of the time, slow shifts toward a new sound will be better than more abrupt ones that we hear artists do when they drop full-length projects that sound completely different from the music they normally release. And also, we have to talk about the song Chimera featuring Lil Wes. I can't get enough of that flamenco classical style, and they make it sound amazing. You have the beginning of the song that gives that playing God energy, and then it swaps back and forth with the heavy djenty sound, and Lil Wes vocals add that extra bit of spice to the track. This is one I can easily play on repeat. In an album full of far from ordinary sounds, this is a track that you can't help but nod your head to the beat. And there's so many different guitar styles in it that it's difficult for your ears to not feel enticed to keep listening. I'm certain this song will be received well by many different audiences that are fans of Polyphia. And the last one of my favorite songs that I'd like to mention is the song Bloodbath featuring Chino Moreno. This song really reminds me of Polyphia's song Look But Don't Touch that was released in 2019, where it had super genty, heavy guitar riffs and then added a metal singer's vocals. I love to hear metal singers over Polyphia's tracks because I feel like they really know how to achieve that sound that works well with heavy guitars. Remember, Chino Moreno is a vocalist for several metal bands, most notably the band Deftones, so he was very much at home with this track. And the energy of the song is pretty ominous, but it expresses that feeling vividly. The song doesn't bring anything new or fresh to the table, as it sounds like Sky Harbor or any other progressive metal band, but it's a combination that works, and I'm glad we got to hear it. And as an honorable mention, it wasn't necessarily one of my favorites, but it's the song Audacity featuring Anomaly. It's a fun track that is packed to the brim with technical playing, and the song is fast-paced, but it expresses how creative Polyphia is in their songwriting. I can't say I've heard a song like this before, but I'm all for the thumps and the fast keyboard runs. There's just so much going on, but it still sounds structured and put together, which I found impressive and thoroughly enjoyed. If I had to choose a favorite song from this entire project, for those of you who watch my videos, you'd know that song would without a doubt be Ego Death featuring Steve Vai. That song is something that has a combination of so many of Polyphia's most original aspects, and you seriously can't get a sound like that anywhere else. Somewhere in the lineup, I'd of course have to add Playing God, and I don't need to explain why. You guys have heard it, you know why. But with this extensive genre fusions that Polyphia has been implementing, they've kept their sound familiar, which I'm sure their longtime listeners would appreciate. I know I definitely do, while at the same time expanding their sound into new territories. I've talked about ABCs as well as Ego Death and other videos, so please feel free to go check those out if you like to hear my analysis and in-depth review on those songs. So for me, this album is a solid 7.5 to 8 out of 10. The 12-song, 40-minute length does a great job of only including the good stuff. We don't get much song fillers and unnecessary tracks. This album cuts straight to the chase. It's difficult to cater to a widespread fan base like Polyphia has, but this project hit the nail on the head. And I truly respect bands and artists that reach for the stars and experiment with new ideas. I mean, unless it's done terribly, but I feel like every song in this project had a place and kind of added to the overall theme of the album. The last topic I want to assess is what I mentioned earlier with Polyphia's downward trend. I know it sounds like I'm preying on their downfall, but I'm not. I absolutely love this band, but I do believe that it is something that will be coming. The crazy part is I don't think they're going to have any control over it. I think the internet is pretty much going to do it for them. Polyphia has just been talked about so much throughout the last few years, and they have so many people reacting to their videos, copying their style to a T, and just so many people capitalizing off of just putting their names in the title. I'm not trying to gatekeep them or anything of that nature, but from an objective standpoint, everything to ever exist for the most part follows the same trends when it comes to audience retention and fame specifically. It's the pendulum swing. Once you've been referenced so much across the internet and you've been talked about for so long, people eventually get tired of you, especially when most of the people talking about you are just bandwagoners hopping on the train, otherwise known as the fake fans. What makes Polyphia's case so unique is that it's not like they're posting an overwhelming amount of music or content. They're playing the game well when it comes to exposure, but they played it so well that people completely outside of their audience demographic are making content on them just for clicks, which I feel will really hurt them in the long run. You could say I do the same thing, but I am an instrumental artist with a channel centered around instrumental music, so of course I'm going to talk about them, and I have created the largest mini documentary about them on YouTube, so there you go. But take DaBaby for example. He blew up so big, so fast, and eventually he stopped circulating as much as the fake fans got tired of him. This is just one example, but you know the exact principle that I am talking about. The only thing that's different in this case is the fact that Polyphia is an instrumental band, and the instrumental genre doesn't have new bands blowing up every few months like pop stars and rappers. It takes a much longer time to build a following in this genre, but I do feel like the same concept applies. The fact that most of their hype came from the anticipation of this album means their 4-year buildup has come to a conclusion, and all of the music they've been working on for the past 4 to 5 years has been released. Maybe they'll release a bonus track in a few months to maintain some of that momentum, but we will see. And all I'm saying is that realistically, there's a good chance that this is as big as this band will get, since they really played into trends in order to expand their reach and grow their fan base. Fingers crossed I am wrong, but I don't think I am. If you guys enjoyed this analysis on Polyphia's album, please be sure to leave a like. They help an absolute ton. And also consider subscribing if you'd like to see more content just like this. But I'd love to hear your comments on any of the aspects that I talked about in this video. And also let me know how you like the album. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for supporting the channel, guys. And I will see you next time.